I was getting the ball to swing. We got into the morning of the game, the first day of the game, and Darren Goff and I think Andy Caddick would have been the bowlers. Were both swinging it a little bit, and then the other two guys after that weren't really regarded as swing bowlers, so they wanted to try somebody else to try and swing it, and I chucked down a few filthy sort of seamers. I had Imran Nazir dropped at third man initially, and then caught extra cover by Ashley Giles. So delighted with my one wicket, shall we say.
Port Giles bowled Trescothick. There's a nice ring to that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Thanks, Marcus. That's great. So onto the onto the main part of the questions. Thanks for your patience with that one. First one I had in was now some of these will be quick fire, some of them will be more detailed. So feel free to go into as much or as little detail as you wish. But did you always want to be a professional cricketer?
Yeah, I think I was sort of toying from a junior level, really, of sort of playing cricket or playing football. I was always better at cricket, and wanted to, I made that sort of choice around sort of 14, probably more than anything else, that cricket was where I was going to go. I remember speaking with Mum about, a little bit just after that about, okay, look, if you're going to be serious about cricket, then you've got to be serious. You've got to think about training. You've got to think about changing the way that you eat, your diet and things, and you've got to give this a shot, so that the exam stuff at that time really didn't have too much of an impact. So I sort of put them on the back burner and just left them alone. Didn't really focus on them too much when the GCSEs came around, and I was lucky enough then to join Somerset literally the day after my last GCSE exam, and started playing for them for the end of that season, and then signed professional when I was sort of 17 in that winter to start my career then.
Wow. And obviously now, just on the education front, just we've got a few younger guys that have tuned in today. I mean, do you think it's easier now, would you say, or there's more support there for the guys that are doing their education whilst trying to be professional cricketers?
Absolutely. I think it's completely changed in the recent times that I was playing. That you now expected to, for a start, you have to go through A levels, so you have, or an apprenticeship, don't you? So you can't get out until you're 18 at least. But then you're encouraged, very much so, especially by the Professional Cricketers Association, the union that looks after all professional sportsmen, professional cricketers, to continue your personal development, to try and educate yourself, because you never know when a cricket career or a sport career may finish. It may happen overnight, and you might not be prepared for it. Even now, I was played for 27 years, and I've moved into my next career of coaching. I'm still looking at active ways that I can improve, more courses, more qualifications, to sort of build up my CV to help me become a better person, to be able to coach better more than anything. And you've got to be prepared to put those hours in, just to make sure that you've got things ticked off behind the scenes, because it will help you when you're playing cricket. There's no doubt about it.
No, I think that's crucial, Marcus. And I think just to set the scene for some of the guys, I think we first came across each other probably about 9 years ago at Taunton School. And at the time, as a younger coach, I was sort of gone out really that, Marcus Trescothick's coaching school side here. But like you say there, is part of that about gaining experience and just boosting that CV, would you say?
Yeah, I knew that's coaching was where it's going to sort of gradually move into, combining that with a bit of punditry on TV. But coaching was kept me involved with the game and keeps you on the front line doing the work that you love doing. And they gave me an opportunity. Taunton School gave me a massive opportunity to come in and do some coaching. It started off as a prep. They were going to India, I think, to do a tour. So they brought me in to do a bit of coaching to try and help them think about that, and it gradually progressed. My kids went there, and obviously, which really helps, also doing it that way. But now I work there. I couldn't tell you how many hours I work there at the moment, but quite often, just in the winters, I'll be up there in between, either playing when I was playing or coaching now. I pop in and out and do the hours of coaching there also. So I'm quite lucky that I'm getting a massive range of coaching hours from year sixes, year sevens, all the way to the test guys, right at the top. That the spectrum of players that I'm working with is such a helpful thing. But coaching the youngsters is by far the hardest compared to coaching with the professionals. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
No, that's interesting. Thanks for that, Marcus. So, next question we had in was, did you feel that there's anything that set you apart from other cricketers as a youngster in your early days at Somerset? And I guess this requires probably not to not be quite as modest, but is there anything where you thought, yeah, this sets me apart, and I'm ahead of these guys?
Well, I don't think you realise it at the time. A couple of things where I would say, look, one was I hit the ball quite hard. I was quite a big lad anyway, sort of growing up, and I could hit the ball harder than most people, time it well. I scored big scores, even from a younger age, sort of 9, 10, I was scoring hundreds in levels a year above where I should have been playing. And I could play probably quick bowling also. When you get those guys that you see around him, there's one tall lad in the team, and I bet he bowls fast. Or they have that quick bowler that everyone talks about, the whole county. Whenever we seem to face those quick bowlers, I seem to really sort of sharpen up and be even better than I normally was. And that sort of stayed with me for a long period of time through my junior cricket. Remember playing a club game with when I played at Cambridge Cricket Club. Dad was captain that day, and I was only 14, I think. And they had a fast guy from South Africa. Everyone was talking about it before the start of the game. And they said, right, you're going to have to bat 7 today, because obviously they've got this guy. And everyone else got out. I was the only one who could face him and get any runs against him. So it seemed to really help my game when somebody bowled quick.
That's an interesting point, and I think maybe slightly off topic, but I'd like to sort of ask you a question that I know a lot of the guys would be interested here. What's your take on youngsters playing senior cricket then from an early age? Because that's quite an interesting topic that often comes up, and in every club you're in, this debate rumbles on. What's your take on that?
I think the sooner they can get into the adult environment where they're facing, a tougher component, opposition, I think that's got to be beneficial. Club cricket is what it is, and it's obviously a good learning ground. Schools cricket is a tough one, isn't it? Because that's where it's most contentious. If they're playing good other schools, I think there's also room for them to be in that environment to show that they can dominate and be better than everyone else. But there's got to be a cross pressure to understand that they have to grow their game and be dominated by a first team Western League side or wherever it would be, whatever these leagues are nowadays. You have to be exposed to it at some point. There's no doubt about it. But there's got to be, I appreciate schools cricket is very important to the school, but there's got to be a balance, I think, that helps everybody.
Marcus, really great insight. Sorry,
Tom. Andrew Jones, can I ask a quick question on the back of that?
Yeah, of course you can, Andrew. Good to see you, chap.
Good. Hello, Marcus. Andrew Jones here from down Cornwall Cricket. Just on the back of what you said, you described briefly how easy you found it at that age coming in. Age-old question then, born or made? Was the skills that you found yourself with then can you describe exactly how you came about them, or was it just something you seem to be naturally gifted with? That's
really tricky to answer, isn't it, Jonesy?
Great question.
I don't know. I've not worked that out yet myself.
Have you identified a coach or anyone who worked with you then? Have you identified anybody or the messages that we're all involved in coaching now? What messages you're looking to try and find youngsters that have got the time that you're talking about? You obviously had time to play this, and we're desperately trying to find those kind of the messages to get to those youngsters. Anybody that you can think of as you were coming up through, any drill or anything that was done or anything at any particular time seemed to just click or not?
I don't think there is any one thing or a combination of things. I was lucky I got to work with some good coaches, as you do. Dad and the parents at the cricket club where I was initially were very instrumental to what went on. And then you go through into your age group coaches. Everyone has their own little way. I wouldn't say, looking at that question there, the influential coaches really came to me when I was older, when I was more playing county cricket Somerset or international cricket with England. That's when I noticed, maybe because I was a bit more aware about what sort of coaching I was getting. But for me growing up, I was very I had a massive love of what I was doing, playing cricket, and if I wasn't playing with my mates, or if I wasn't playing a game, Dad would be out in the middle, and I know there's millions of times I'd just be in the net on my own, just throwing the ball up and whacking it into the net. And now I'm doing my own learning about coaching and trying to understand what juniors do and what makes them right. And they talk about these 10,000 hours, or the period of time before you're a certain age, before you're doing all this coaching. Maybe I was coaching myself and was learning the game from a very, very young age, and I just didn't realize what I was doing, and all the attributes were growing and building without me even knowing that it was happening. So I guess I was putting in the time and getting ahead of the game from a younger age.
Maybe you didn't have the distractions that maybe some of the kids seem to have today. It seems to be one of the hardest things is the distractions, the options they have to do other things, getting them to just, you're describing what we all did, go up there up the field. But no, brilliant. Thanks for that. Thanks.
Okay.
That's great. No, great question. Thanks for that. And guys, like I said, do chip in, and that's a really good question. So if you think there's something to add or ask, please do. We've sort of covered the next one, haven't we, really, Marcus, I guess. So after having a successful playing career at Somerset, what has changed about the professional game, do you think, specifically in the county championship? Now, I presume that means over the years you played as opposed to since you finished. But in your opinion, is there one or two things that have changed significantly?
Yeah. Well, the game has dramatically improved. The athleticism in the game, the professionalism in the game, the approach to the game from a younger age is far greater now. The guys are going through the pathway from the age of 10, 11, 12, 14 up to academy and beyond. That's the journey of what they had. The professional side, I remember when I was sort of starting, back when I was sort of 17, 18, you would be sent home, or you'd go home in the winter. And I used to live in Bristol, and then obviously during the summer I'd come down and live in Taunton. But you would practice after Christmas maybe once, twice a week, come down for nets with the rest of the players. There wouldn't be particularly much fitness or anything involved. And then you'd be expected to return on the 1st of April for about a 3.5 week pre-season leading into the start of the summer, where it was a case of, if you got outdoors, sometimes you get outdoors on the 1st of April and everyone would be running around, batting, bowling. And without a doubt, people would be injured by the end of the week because they'd just not done enough loading or got their bodies prepared. But, it's so detailed now. You see some of the academy programs and some of the player pathway programs now, which are the training, the fitness, the diets, the psychology, everything that goes with it. So they're being prepared and prepped for becoming a professional sportsman, a professional cricketer from a very young age. So it's ingrained once they're getting there. We're lucky, I think, with our academy, with Somerset, is that we're producing, and it's continuing to get players through at a good age and ready to sort of join the staff, because it's just so professional from 7 or 8 years younger compared to when I sort of started. So, it's never been a better time almost to be a professional cricketer, to join through now and get through the system and be what you can become, because it's an epic place to be.
Thanks for that, Mark. That's great insight. And I know there's a couple of supporters that have actually signed up for today, so they'll appreciate that. If they want to probably find out more specifically your views on the county championship, can we ask that one at the end, guys? Because that could open up a can of worms that take us off on a tangent here. So if that's okay for the guys,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Ask that. That would be perfect. So a bit now batting against fast bowling. I'm not sure who was bowling there, if you can remember on that picture, but
it's an England game.
Yeah.
And Lords by the look of it.
Yeah. What do you think the most important factor is, when facing fast bowling? It's a question I think that often flies around the coaching scene, isn't it? What is the most important thing?
I think it all depends on what type of player you are. I think it's really important that you've got your method. I like trigger movements. I think they work really well for batters, and get the batters in good position. Although I have seen some of the better players of quicker bowling, like Nick Compton. I played with Nick Compton for quite a period of time, and he was really good against the quicker bowlers because he could just ride the bounce of the ball and good at pulling, and he never had a trigger movement at all. didn't move his bat, just stood dead still, waiting for the ball to come down. But I think if you have that balanced position and you're getting into a base pretty quickly, get your triggers and get all your movements out of the way, that stands you in a decent position and good stead to be able to play quicker bowlers. I think you've got to have a certain amount of ticker. You've got to be ready to be able to get in the fight, be prepared to be hit. Think about, the scoring areas of where you're going to be. I think when I was playing with England, my style of play and my technique was more suited to playing the ball that would be bouncing sort of knee high and above on good pitches. So I could sort of sit back and not really move into it that much. If I'm coaching the better players nowadays, or so let's say someone like a Tom Banton and Tom Abel, maybe from Somerset also, I think we work very hard on the short ball. I know Graham Thorpe and Mark Rampakash have pushed players from a long period of time now to get very good at playing quick bowling because it's so important. I went into the Ashes stuff this last summer, and you'd seen Rory Burns. Rory Burns has a brilliant career and scored mountains of runs in county cricket, but suddenly they bowled very short at him, and they were all testing him on the short ball, and it wasn't easy for him. So he was in the middle of his first series against Australia, going into the nets with Graham Thorpe and having lots of short ball practice. So that, if we could escalate that and bring that forward, you've got to get used to it at a quicker age because it's one of the first places you'll get highlighted against a quick bowling attack is they'll bowl short at you.
Thanks, Marcus. What age, there'll be guys in here thinking, well, guys of that sort of age and girls, but also coaches, what sort of age do you think we should start exposing ourselves as players and ourselves as coaches, these guys to the short ball?
I don't think there's necessarily an age to it. I think it's more of an ability level.
Yeah.
When you think potentially, okay, this lad's ready to sort of step up. He might be 13, and you be going, he can cope with bowlers 3 years older than what he can do.
Mm.
Then there's no reason why you shouldn't be testing it. I've seen kids at our school, at Taunton School, and there's there's two of them who I would say are sort of year 8 students. So what are they, 10, going into senior school? No, they'll be more than that, 12. Are ready to sort of kick on and say, right, let's start taking on some bumper practice and some unique style of playing against quicker bowlers because, they could easily play in under 15 games and succeed. So it's more of an age level for me.
Perfect. Hopefully that.
Sorry, more of an ability level. Sorry, not an age level.
No, thank you. That's great. What a technical question, I guess. We've got a varied, amount of different types of people on here. Can you simplify that as best you can as an opening batter? What were your plans to combat swing bowling?
I think more than anything else, I think you've got to wait for the ball. You're trying to play it as late as possible. Give the ball time to let it swing was my sort of theory. I wouldn't want to get at the ball too much. I was trying to let it come as much as possible, try and hit it right under my nose as late as possible as I could. That was the real key bit. And also not trying to predict where it was going to be. So quite often it's going to be off stump and just outside. And you can get a little bit anxious to get at the ball, especially early season on pitches that are going to nibble around a little bit. So you get a little bit premeditating, knowing where the ball is. So it's the worst thing you can do. You've got to really sit back and for me to let it swing, let it happen and hit the ball late.
On the back of that, I just got myself thinking here. Do you believe that you sort of adopted in your career benefited your ability to play that swing ball?
I think it helped, yeah. I do think it helped. It helped in a method of playing on pitches that would nibble around because I would just play the line of what I thought the ball was, almost protecting my stumps and my pads, and then let the ball swing away or let the ball swing in to hit the bat and sort of play it in that fashion. So it did help because you could sort of line it up and sort of give yourself that opportunity. But that really changed my game, finding that method of doing it because it enabled me to bat for longer periods of time. I could still hit the ball and I could still score runs, but now I was being a lot more selective about what I was trying to do and leaving so many more balls. But it came about by pure accident how I found it. Whilst being in Australia one winter, playing club cricket, I was working with a guy called Peter Karlstein at the WACA in WA in Perth. and we'd gone into sessions, and I was expecting some good practice and, you know, looking forward to my hour hit and the time that had been allotted. And I got there, and there was like 3 or 4 people who was else in the net, you know, joining also. So basically, when you're out, and someone else had their opportunity. And I was getting really annoyed at this, because it was like, this isn't, I want more time. I want more practice. I want to be working with you and learning. So I sort of went into this practice. We used to use a half bat, which was like 8 centimeters wide. And he'd have tennis balls out of the bowling machine, and you could spin them to make them swing and do different things. So I then just worked out and said, right, I'm going to play for my stumps. And that's all I did, is went like that. And I worked out a method. I thought, do you know what? That might work out in a game. And there you go. The rest is history.
That's fantastic insight. Thanks for that, Mark.
Can I have a go in there?
Of course.
It's Steve, Tom's younger brother, Marcus. Sorry, slightly better looking. So I just wanted to pick up on what you were talking about fast bowling, trying to piece it all together. Obviously, I would suggest that from what I've seen over the years is very much you rely, like you say, on your hands and hand-eye coordination and bits like that, and not much footwork. I mean, and does that come from the idea of, you know, when you say as a young age from a fantastic against fast bowling and things like that, that's where you really exerted it. Would it come through you just trusting your eye with that in particular?
It's interesting. You know, I've been watching the TV today, so the Edgbaston test is on Sky today, and it made me realise, actually, you know what, I didn't hardly move my feet, did I? It was like there was really not much movement at all, because you sort of evolve and change, and my style for playing county cricket at the back end of my career was a lot different, and I moved my feet deliberately a lot more because I had to get closer to the ball. But the key bit to it, watching back and thinking about how it was the contact point of the ball. Because you couldn't stand dead still and not move at all, and you hit the ball under your eyes. It's irrelevant what your feet do, in my belief. I don't think, you know, we see Steve Smith, we see Kane Williamson. They don't move a massive amount of foot movement. They move quite a lot of body, and their hips and their weight is moving into the ball, but they hit the ball so late, which is absolutely crucial. If they, for 1 minute, they get out in front of their front foot or their front of their knee, everyone is the same. Everyone's in danger at that point, because you're hitting the ball at totally the wrong time and you're out of control. So if the ball's swinging, that's when you get into trouble. So, you know, again, watching the TV, I was amazed at how late I hit the ball for not hardly moving my feet.
Brilliant, thank you.
I'll have to ask that participant to mute his microphone now after critiquing your footwork, Marcus. So thanks very much. Okay, so next question. Yeah, a common question I'm guessing you get a lot really as an ex-international would be, who are the best fast bowlers you've faced? Maybe could you name your most skillful and then maybe the fastest?
Yeah, I thought the best quick bowler or fast bowler, opening bowler, whatever you want to be, would have been Glenn McGrath. His accuracy, his ability to make the ball seam on pretty much any pitch that you played, the bounce that he got, he was quicker than you expected as well. He used to hit the bat a lot harder than you sort of saw the ball through the air almost. So he just surprised you that little bit, and he was just always at you. I found him very tricky on any situation, any given day. That he was always quite challenging. It was only really in 2005 when we started to be a bit more aggressive, and obviously he had a sore ankle at that time, that we could sort of start dominating and get on top of him a little bit. But he was the best quick bowler. The quickest I faced was two, Brett Lee or Shoaib Akhtar. Both were at times up to sort of 94, 95 miles an hour. And you had to be on your game. There were certain times when I faced them which I felt really confident. I was playing the ball well, and I felt in good nick that I could be aggressive against them. There was other times when I felt out of form, and they felt too quick, you know, and you really struggled to get used to the pace of what they were trying to do. So, you know, it's good days and bad days, as you would face any type of bowler. Wasim Akram was another one. He's the best left arm seamer I faced, especially when the ball reversed. He was a superb bowler. You know, there was a lot of, you know, I faced Walsh, Ambrose, Wakar, Wasim, many other good bowlers out there. So it's like, you know, you have good days against them, and you know, you really respect what they do.
That's great. Thanks for that, Marcus. Hopefully that covers that one. Sort of leads us nicely on to batting against spin, really. Again, a combination of questions we've we've got for you that have come in, but also that we've sort of put together here. What the key points you'd say against scoring against good spin bowling? What would you say the key points are for that?
The method for me is absolutely crucial. All right, so I worked out a bit of a technique in terms of while working with Duncan Fletcher about the forward press or the forward movement, whatever it needs to be, and that's really sort of getting you in a position to be able to then pick the length of the ball and then make a late decision to where you're going to play it. But I think it's really important you get a method. If you're too tall, or if you only play in one style away, then you'll get found out pretty quickly. So understand how you're going to do this. Work out, have a good defence, be able to sweep if you can, and be able to use your feet would be the three main important parts of it. Combining that with a certain style of play and technique about what you're trying to learn. You're really best to try and, if you can watch as much of the Asians batting against spin, you'll see them have this forward movement or the forward press, trying to get into the ball to try and get their movements out of the way. Duncan Fletcher's principle or theory was that you had to have less movements going on against spin bowlers to be able to pick the ball when you're facing Muralitharan or Warne, so that when you made the decision what you're going to hit, you had little movement to get to the ball to make that choice and make it happen.
Great stuff. That's fantastic insight, that. I guess you've already answered this really, but do you think I think it comes on the back of obviously one of your trademark shots being the sweep, the slog sweep, and one of the first batters, not the first, but one of the first to bring that into the game. Do you think that's how highly do you regard that as an important weapon in your armoury as a batter?
Oh, it was huge for me. That was my main go-to shot. I could sweep from a very young age. Maybe I didn't have any sort of real coaching. You just learn how to do it. You get it wrong some days and it hits you on the foot or it hits you on the pad, and so you do it differently the next days. But I did, once I got playing professional, work on it very, very, intensely, to know that I could then sweep any ball from any bowler almost, even sort of seamers at bowling sort of 75, 80 miles an hour. I felt I could sweep anything. I would go into nets in my prep and my practice and literally sweep every ball that was bowled from spinners, and they used to get so annoyed. So they'd run up and then try and bowl as fast as possible and hit you on the foot, or they'd run up and bowl a bumper and then you just duck out of the way. But I got so confident with it that I felt like any ball they bowled, I could sweep it and get it into position.
It's been a nice feeling, that. But yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. Brilliant. Mirroring the fast bowlers question, really. I'm guessing you might have already mentioned one, but which of the spinners do you find toughest to play? And was there any times you felt you had to change that technique during your career, maybe?
Very much so. This is an interesting one because this probably kept evolving more than anything else. So, as I said, I could always sweep the ball. And then before DRS, you could always get away with just thrusting your pad at the ball with your bat somewhere close to it, so that LBW wasn't in the game. Well, that's totally different nowadays. So your defensive technique has to be absolutely spot on. You have to, in my opinion, I think you need to have your bat out in front of your pad. So your bat is your only line of defence, and if you miss it, hopefully it misses everything. The best bowlers I faced, there was obviously two around that time. Shane Warne, I regard as the best spinner. Bowling leg spin, just absolutely brilliant. Could change a plan, could change a field, and then sort of execute what he was trying to do, while at the same time he's just always chirping in your ear, chirping to the umpire, just sort of trying to distract you and do certain things. But a brilliant bowler. And then Muralitharan, again, he was very, very fine bowler. At the start of my sort of time playing for England, I had good success against Muralitharan. I got 100 in Sri Lanka in my first game out there. Then I got another 100 against him in another place. But then, so you only have to start with, he had the off spinner and then what was called the top spinner. But then he invented the Dusra, which went the other way, and I couldn't pick that at all. And I used, towards the end of my career, sort of 04, 05, around that sort of time, he used to get in the LBW quite a bit, and I used to just get the pad in the wrong place. I had to change my technique, and it took a bit of time to get that right. Around 05, I was actually changing my style of technique because I kept getting out to Warne, caught back pad at silly point, even right to the end, you know, my style against spinners was ever evolving because of DRS and the way that spinners bowled. Almost then, the off spinners and left arm spinners have become more valuable in a team, and off spin in particular. So the ball spinning away from me, I sort of lost confidence with it completely. Jeetan Patel was getting me out a lot in county cricket, and I couldn't work out a method. I kept trying to sweep and missing it, or I would try and play a certain shot and get out to it. So then one winter, a couple of years ago, I spent all winter working out and changing my style and my method to off spin, and I had to reinvent my style. And I think this was the year before I retired. So I then went into the following season with a different plan and approach about what I was going to do. And I limited myself to playing 3 shots. One was like a push through extra cover to get off strike. One was like a back cut. Anyway, I could late cut quite well. My hands worked quite nicely. So I had a push through offside, a back cut, and a little paddle sweep. And that was the only shots that I played to an off spin after that.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Marcus. Brilliant sharing of that, you know, for the youngsters that have joined us today, and just the simplicity of the plan, which I guess leads us nicely into the next part, really. Apologies for the 2 sweep shots again. Marcus does have other shots, guys, that he did play. So I do apologise about that. But Marcus, your sort of mental approach to batting. Again, these are questions that we've got 3 or 4 of these come in, so I thought it'd be nice to share them with you. Were there any specific processes you used as a player to deal with pressure when you played at the top? Anything?
Well, this is the biggest untapped area of the game. And it's obviously harder for youngsters to understand how it goes, but the older you get, the more you realise this is the difference in the game, because you have your technique and your style of play, but it's what's going on in your head really makes a difference. Can you be robotic-like in your approach and your thinking to help you then produce and score runs out in the game? And, you know, so we had a sports psychologist who was very good working with England at the time, called Steve Bull, who really helped me sort of produce and change my style of thinking and help me with concentration in different ways. One of the great things that sort of came to me was I needed to try and distract myself when I was more under pressure. And I found quite often that either I was under pressure with the situation, or I would be under pressure because my thinking wasn't quite right in how I was moving. Quite often as a batsman, you might go out there and go, oh, move your feet, or, you know, get your foot into line. You know, this is totally the wrong things that you need to be thinking at that moment in time. You need to be focusing at the other end, watching the ball come out of the bowler's hand and facing the ball. I then started around that sort of time of singing to myself when I was batting. Various different songs, quite often songs that were quite relevant in the charts at the time, or, you know, it was well known. And all I was doing was distracting my brain to allow the natural side of the game to take over, because then it could happen on instinct. And then everything happened to seem to sort of fall into place. You know, it then changed, and you went through different phases, and I got better at concentrating and understanding what concentration was like. I could get to the point where I'd be going, right, just watch the ball, and being at your best in that way. So it's ever evolving and ever changing, but you've just got to try and find out simple methods that will really help you, and techniques and people out there who are specialists in this sort of thing can really make a difference.
Great that you sort of highlight the need to practice the mental approach there, as well as, you know, you've alluded to repetition and 10,000 reps for the technical side, but I think it's great for the guys on here to hear that the mental approach doesn't just happen, and, you know, people can read up on it and talk about it, but hearing from yourself that it takes practice and that you've spent a lot of time practicing it, I think is really important for
there's one point to that almost, is that there was a period of time, it was about 2001, 2002, where I was getting a lot of scores of sort of like 85 to 90 and really starting to lose focus, getting close to the 100 and the nervous 90s, if you like. And I spent a lot of time with Steve then at that time, just thinking about how I'm going to overcome this. And the only way I sort of worked out how to do it was to get to a point from about 85 and then switch into this mode of what I practice in the nets. So I would then go from 85 to 100 in singles was what I was trying to do. And the only way I could get this right was practice it into the net. So I'd go into every net session and go, right, I'm 85. What are you going to do? And you're trying to replicate yourself back into that brain where you're thinking about it while practicing a mental skill. And the technical side would look after it because you're distracting yourself and you're practicing something that you're getting used to it. And over the period of a few months of doing that regularly in every net session that I did, it sort of helped overcome those sort of feelings, because when I got to that point again in a test match or a first class match, I could then switch into the brain of where I was going to and have a method about what I was trying to achieve, which really, really helped me.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. Just linking back to what we spoke about earlier, someone like Warren, then, for example, who notorious was to the onlooker for chirping, but obviously you've just confirmed that, really. What's your approach with someone like him then? Because obviously with him trying to get you out of that, you're trying to get into that zone, aren't you, of focus. He's trying to get you out of it. What was your approach with him?
I'd be aggressive. Be aggressive in how we were playing, how we were batting. Try and keep scoring. Kind of not let him get you under pressure, because if he did, he'd have you, and that would be it. You had to keep putting him under pressure was the best way that we worked out. And in the 05 series was really the key bit. He still got 40 odd wickets, 43 wickets I think he got in the series, but he got them at such a different strike rate, which put the other bowlers under the pressure, because normally he was going at 2 and over, where this time he's going at 4 and over.
Perfect, that's great.
I've got a question, please, Tom.
Sorry, of course. Yes, please.
Good to hear. Hello, Marcus. Marcus, you talk about what you're doing, time to, when the ball's spinning or coming fast, you got time to look at it, where it's coming from, what you're going to do with it. This ball is taking half a second to leave the bowler and get to you. Maybe a minute, a second if it's a spin ball. What does that do to your brain? What's your brain like to be able to deal with that sort of speed of reaction, speed of thinking? Do you really have time to say, I know where this ball is coming, I know what to do with it, wow, I'm going to do it? Because you obviously do. What's the secret? Because maybe we could get a few other people around here running the coronavirus campaign or something, the same sort of decision-making capability.
Thanks. That's an interesting insight into...
I'll stick to the cricket. I know that,
yeah, let's steer from politics. Perfect. What was it?
I think, you practice and you train at that high level. But when you're facing someone bowling fast, you have that, it happens all on instinct. So, I'm not making that decision as he's letting go and say, oh, there's that ball, that's what's coming down. It's too late. It's all happened. You predicted it already. I know, I can see where it's going to be, and I can predict where it's going to be, all without you thinking about it, so that it just happens. It's really hard to explain, because I'm not a scientist enough to really understand it. But you train
just a fluke, is it, Marcus? Yeah, just a fluke.
It's training at the highest intensity, isn't it? You've got to be able to put yourself in that situation. I don't know. Is there going back to Jonesy's question, is there an element of natural talent? I don't know. But we practice for so long and put yourself in that situation that you just get used to it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just amazing.
How it happens, I don't know.
Yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of people could learn from that sort of decision-making, use of brain sort of capability. Yeah, well done. Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. No, that's great. And I think that, Marcus, that sort of leads us in really to the final couple of questions here. Obviously, many will say that batting provides probably one of the biggest challenges in sport, probably because of the ruthless sport in cricket, because of the ruthless nature of batting as such. Were there times where, would you agree with that statement, I guess, is the question?
I think it's relative. The pressures are all relative to your own sport, I think. There's many a time I've sat down after nicking one for naught and gone, why is this so hard work? Why is this so tough? But I can't see it being any different to any other sport. The only difference is the length of time that you need to do it to succeed. The only thing that would be, I don't know, comparable with maybe golf. They have that similar sort of 4 or 5 hour time scale where they've got to be concentrating the whole time. yes, they can recover from a bad shot and make it okay. Where if we have a bad shot and it's not our day, you're sitting down dwelling on it, thinking, what have I done? What have I done? But it's tough. It is tough. You have to deal with the mental side of failing and make peace with it almost, because it's going to be there. It's inevitable. In any sport that you do, you've got to be prepared to accept that it's going to go wrong.
Thanks for that. Finally, do you think it's important for coaches, parents to allow failure with younger cricketers? I think slightly lower down the sort of pathway here, but without us going too far into, this you could write 30,000 words on this question. I think it's great. It's a really interesting question to come in, but because there are parents on here listening, there are coaches listening, there are players whose parents are involved in the cricket, some more heavily than others. What's your view on that?
I think it's important at some point that they need to experience the failure or the disappointing side of the game, or in any game, any sport that they play in, because you have to prepare for that, because it's inevitable that it will happen. That no one goes through their whole sporting career succeeding every time. It's just not possible. So to be able to cope with that, the better you can cope with the failure, the more you'll have success at the top end, because you'll become understanding. Like I said before, you make peace with it, to know that if I keep doing the right things, I will succeed soon, and you will get better. But you've got to be as level as you can. So you can't not go through a period of time and not experience failure, because once it happens, you'll drop down so far that it's really hard to recover from and sort of bounce back. So I think the earlier you can experience, the better, because then you can understand it, you can start training for it and start practicing with failure, which makes you better in the long run. Studies show that if young kids who have had great success also have a tough failure at some point, will be more experienced and better prepared for it when it happens again at a later stage. So there's got to be an element of being exposed to it.
But on the back of that, how coaches, parents react to failure, because as a coach and yourself as a coach, you see many varieties of reaction from parents, and I don't know if you have a viewpoint as to certain approaches are more helpful than others when it comes to helping youngsters through their difficulties. What do you think on that?
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. The more supportive we can be through failure, I guess, the help it's gonna bring someone through better. Being realistic, you've got to be honest, but you've got to be supportive at the same time. I think once with the sort of coaching I do, especially with the younger levels at school, I try and get them to understand why it happens. What was that famous quote from Michael Jordan about how many times he's missed and he's lost? But that's why he succeeds, because he appreciates it even more once he gets to that point. But as much as possible, I think when you're in team sports, in junior cricket or junior sports, let the coaches do their work. I watch my girls. I've got two girls, 12 and 15, and when I watch them play sport, I don't get involved in any way. I try and stay non-committed to what's going on. Inside, I can feel that I want them to win, and I really hope that they do. And if they fail, you take on a bit of that responsibility. But I allow the coach just to do what they want to do, and it's tough. It's tough as a parent to not be involved in it and get stuck in and come on, do the right thing. But I want the coach to. That's their job. That's what they've got to do. I don't like to butt in and help out, but it's tricky. It is tricky because no one wants their child to be failing. But there's an element that they need to learn from to make them better.
There we go. Parents who are watching, leave the coaches to do their job. I think that's great advice, and I think that can be supported, can't it, with effective dialogue and communication between coach and parent, which doesn't always happen.
It's so hard though, isn't it, Tommy?
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's really hard. I've seen my wife does it and I shout her every time, but I also get punched afterwards. But, you know, it's so tricky because you're so invested in what your child's doing. But if you can just sort of distract, like just sort of take a step back and let it happen, it's definitely helped.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. Moving on, becoming a world-class slip fielder. Quite an amusing image there, and we thought we'd get a close-up of it as well, because I know that, Marcus, you're the reason that loads of our youngsters in the last two or 3 years want to lie down during slip catching practice. And we say to them, well, what are you doing? Well, Marcus Trescothick does it. So how can we respond to that? So I guess my question really here is that, you know, you took 460 first-class catches. Were you a specialist slip fielder always? What skills are required, and what was that?
So the bottom right picture, where you can see me sort of catch there. Yeah. That was the moment that changed the game, right? So we changed the principle about what we were trying to do. So it all came around is that we played on quite a number of pitches that spin at Taunton, as most people will know. We found on days 1 and 2, the ball would spin and bounce. But then on days sort of 3 and 4, if it ever got to that far, the ball would spin, but it would keep a lot lower. It didn't bounce as much. So if they nicked it, it quite often wouldn't carry to the slip fielders, especially the guy at gully. You know, we used to find it would bounce in front of you. So in the practice, myself and Lewis Gregory, who was quite often at first slip at that time, and it was Lewis that came up with the idea. He said, well, why don't you go on your knees and see what happens? And I was like, no, stupid, I'm not getting on my knees at gully. And then we practiced it, and it was like, wow, you know, we're taking so many more catches here, you know, because there's no movement of your feet or trying to bend down. I'm catching the ball a centimetre off the ground anywhere around me, plus you can dive forward and scoop the other one up. So then we invested a bit of time in practicing and doing it and trying to do it. And then we tried it in a game down at Hampshire. Lewis did it for the first time. Nothing happened. And that picture at on the bottom right corner was the first catch that we ever had. And it was the point that we realised we've got something. You know, we've actually invented something that's actually going to make a massive difference. Hence, then we took quite a number of catches that you know, in that sort of position, which you don't normally get. But it was a great moment. Anyway, answer a few of those questions there. Was I always a specialist fielder, slip fielder? I was always a slip fielder. Whether I was a good slip fielder or not, I don't really know. I got myself into a good slip fielder because I practiced hard and worked out of it, how to do it. No one really ever taught me how to be a slip fielder until I played with England. And then Duncan Fletcher sort of taught me a technique about what you were trying to do. And I didn't think there would ever be a technique to catching or fielding and these sort of things. So you just sort of stood there. But he wanted you to be as relaxed as possible. So when the ball took the edge, you could then react and catch the ball. Very much like you are with batting. So get a very comfortable, balanced position. I always found my hands on my knees the most comfortable position because I could stay there all day, just watching the ball go, and you'd stand there and watch the ball go to the keeper and be very relaxed. But he also wanted us to practice trying to catch the ball. Imagine being in my slip position, catching the ball out in front of you, diving forward to catch like 2 foot in front of you would be the position you wanted to do. So you're always thinking about leaning forward because the minute you would go like that and react to the ball being nicked off the bat was the danger position, because then you couldn't get back down into it. So being very relaxed and practicing in a good way was a massive difference to me. And I regarded my slip fielding to become one of the best when I was playing with England. And I took a lot of pride in what I was trying to do by not dropping any. And I was operating at sort of 90% of catches taken, which I was really happy. But I wanted to get to 100%. Every time you drop a catch, it's a horrible feeling. But I don't know if there's any skills involved necessarily. I think it's a practice thing. You get in there and you work out a way of watching the ball. The concentration is important. I think you've got to have a certain element where you can be able to focus on and off all day. You know, a ball's bowled and it goes through to the keeper. I remember there was one game playing for Somerset against Hampshire down at the Rose Bowl back in the time. And I stood there for 100 103.9 overs, 0.5 overs, and I got a nick the last ball of the day. Thanks very much. Off you go. So, you know, having that concentration, being able to focus and just think about it was really, really helpful. And the theory, yeah, I've gone through the theory of being down on your knees. You know, it's really important that we were trying to catch balls that were really low down, and it definitely made a difference. We've got everybody fooled because you see it around the world. You see international cricketers doing it now, and you're thinking, oh my God, you know, what have we done? I don't think the law will change. I don't think there's any law against being on your knees, but there is method in the madness.
Apart from in your coaching sessions, I'd imagine.
Well, you got to be prepared. I'll tell you what, you need to have a certain amount of kit on, because towards the end of it, I actually was trying to get in the way. They would go like, you'd be pressing forward so you could be leaning forward. The minute they'd go back and cut, I'd be like this, try and get as big as I could so that the ball could hit me, because obviously you had a helmet on. You could then be caught off the helmet. So I'd get as big as I could to try and let the ball rebound. And you'd either have someone at silly point or you'd have the wicketkeeper just over here. We never got one, but I got hit a few times, but we didn't get any catches, unfortunately.
Perfect. Mark, that's great. Obviously, this is probably something you spoke about more than anything, I'd imagine, since the series that was, well, regarded as probably one of the greatest series of all time, certainly of our generation. But there's a few questions that have come in. Here they are. And really, what from your side, what was the difference that series? And you know, what gave the England boys the edge over the Aussies that series?
Yeah, I think for the first time, I played in sort of 3 Ashes series, and for the first time, we were in a completely different state of mind about what we were going to try and do. Over the 18 months before this sort of Ashes took place, we built up this team that we won from a lot of difficult positions. We were going to be a lot more aggressive in how we batted and bowled. We also had a bowling attack that could, you know, challenge anybody in the world and make it very tricky. So come to the start of that Ashes, that we were just in a lot more aggressive place. We were a lot more confident. We would stand up to them and not be bullied by what they normally do when they give you all the verbals and get in your face. It wasn't the case of that, because we were being dominant, and it almost didn't allow for them to try and bully you. It was only really Shane Warne who succeeded throughout the series. A couple of their batsmen did okay, but the bowlers really struggled, bar the game at Lords, which obviously comes on to the second question.
Yeah.
The feeling after Lords was pretty dejected. Not because we'd lost necessarily. It was the fact that we'd gone into the series with great hope, and we'd not played in the fashion that we'd done before. You know, that relates back to the first question. The style of play that we'd sort of given ourselves and the method that we were going to do it, we stood off. We sat back, and we weren't aggressive enough in what we were trying to do. And that gave the Australians the upper hand, and they dominated us in that first test. We were really lucky, actually, that after that game, we had a week off in between that and the second test match. So you could get away and, you know, put the kit away and not think about it too much, and then come back and prepare. And, you know, that was the key bit to it then. The preparation time in that week off was absolutely pivotal to refocusing the mind and getting us back into where we needed to do. It then helps. Glenn McGrath standing on the ball was a massive help. Things then sort of fell into place. You know, everything sort of was going our way after that. And you were rolling with the successes that we were having, and we were putting them under pressure and getting on top of every game that we played.
I think the tone that was set on that day at Edgbaston, would you argue it redefined Test cricket?
No, I'm not sure redefined, because I think Australia had been doing it for a good period of time before. You know, they had such a fantastic team. Yeah. And what we did on that day, they'd been doing to numerous teams around the world for a long period of time, because they had a fantastic top 6, top 7 with a brilliant bowling attack. So they were always ahead of a game, which is exactly what we did. Suddenly they took the best bowler in the world out of the game in Glenn McGrath, and it was a different game altogether. You only had then Shane Warne to really contend with. And we were just very confident and aggressive about what we were trying to do. And everything that happened really set the positivity in that, you know, so there was a lot more things that went into it. make sure that we could play and be aggressive in that fashion. But if we'd have come out and been a little bit tentative in that Ashes or in that Edgbaston game, it could have been a lot different. If they'd have scored 3 more runs or 2 more runs in that last innings, it would have been a lot different. But they didn't. They gladly.
Rest is history, as they say. Best series ever?
Yeah, I think there's not been many Test series that we've seen since, is there, that's really sort of stood up to it. I think we've had some good occasions and some good times. I thought the last series was pretty good. You had some great moments, obviously, throughout last summer with the World Cup and obviously with Ben Stokes at Headingley. But as a 5-Test series goes, it's amazing, because it ebbed and flowed all the whole time. There was great days, there was great bowling spells, great catches, great runs. It had everything that you wanted to watch.
Perfect. Marcus, I've got a couple more questions, if that's okay, before I open it to the guys if they want to ask any of their own. But one of them is on a coaching front, and that's what coaching style worked for you as a player. So what was the best coaches you worked with, their approach with you? What was that, and how did it? Why was it the best approach with you?
Yeah, I think I worked best with obviously 2 coaches. That was Duncan Fletcher and Dermot Reeve when he sort of coached Somerset. Duncan Fletcher, it just seemed to, when he used to talk about batting and the methods that he was trying to get us to undertake, it seemed so simple. It felt so logical about, that makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't it work in that way? I had a great deal of trust in him, and I think he had a lot of belief in myself also. But so we had a great partnership where we could talk and work out, and I could go to him to understand things. But he made it just incredibly simple about what I was trying to learn and get better. It also helps that when he mentioned things and I tried to get them right, they did have an impact on the game, and they brought success when it changed it. Dermot Reeve was a little bit different because he got me to think a bit more outside the box. Quite young in the time when I was playing with Somerset then, and not as experienced or well known in what I was trying to do. He would challenge your thinking and get you to think differently about how to play the game, talking about sweeping spinners, other aspects when you're fielding, about bouncing the ball in, just different approach to what it had been. You'd had normal cricket coaches before, but then this guy had come in, we've got all these different ideas, and just made you open your eyes to work in that way. I guess I needed to build a relationship with somebody to really get the best out of it. I've had a few coaches that just didn't click, or didn't like the style of way that they would try and coach me. It was quite aggressive potentially, and a bit not dictatorship, but you've got to do it this way. This is how you have to do it. There's a big difference between that and somebody trying to get you to learn something. Duncan had that method of getting you. He wanted you to do something, but in your way, and that made a big difference for me.
Brilliant. And just a few sort of quick fire questions. 2 most promising cricketers on the county circuit at the moment, youngsters. Who would you say?
Well, I suppose, would Tom Banton still be one of those, I suppose?
You don't have to wear the Somerset hat here.
Yeah,
No.
First and foremost.
I think you're right.
He's one. He's probably the most exciting batsman in the country, not playing sort of Test cricket at the moment. Ollie Pope would be another one. I think he's an outstanding young player, and he's going to have a fantastic Test career. And I think eventually, when Joe Root sort of moves away from one-day cricket, he will step into Joe Root's sort of position there, at sort of 4, and be the glue to the team. I'm trying to think of a bowler to look after the bowlers. Saqib Mahmood, probably the one at the lad at Lancashire. I think he's got some raw talent, and he's pretty exciting about what he does as a bowler.
Perfect.
Not as easy with the bowling, I don't think.
No, that's great. Just summarise your thoughts on the. I'm trying to keep this as concise as possible because I can see where it can go. What are your thoughts on the 100 for next season? If you were just to summarise that briefly.
I think it'd be an interesting concept. I think it's going to be exciting when it happens. Such a shame. Obviously, we're in the situation we are at the moment. We're not going to get to see it, but it's just a new style of the game, which is going to be different. It's going to provoke conversations around the country. You're going to see things from players which will be very exciting when it finally happens. It's just different, isn't it? When you've got a bowler who can bowl 3 of the last 4 overs, how's the game going to evolve? Can he change games by being in one bowler? You'll see a lot more one-man games coming through, I think. But you'll see some exciting cricket, there's no doubt about it.
Great stuff. County Championship cricket, there's quite a few County Championship followers that have joined us today. A couple of things that you think would increase attendances at Championship games? Can you think of anything? If you were on the ECB board and you were trying to increase the attendances, anything you'd do?
Well, from a batting point of view, I'd get rid of the seam on the ball for a start. I think that'd be much better for the batsman. But I think in general, it would have been great this year if we had played, because the weather's been superb for county cricket. I think the pitches would have been a lot better than what they have done. But it's a tough game. County cricket is a tough game. You're rolling from one week to the next. You got to just keep trying to improve. If we can get the time of year, would be better. If we get more games in the middle of the summer, which would really help the batsmen. I'm sure many of the quick bowlers will be very happy to keep them around early April and late September. But any cricket right now would be great, wouldn't it? So it's just an interesting place where we are.
Perfect. Marcus, that's been really useful. I mean, fantastic, and thanks so much for being so honest and open in your answers there. I'm sure that all the guys who have joined in appreciate that. Just going to give a chance for just a few, if that's okay with you. I'm aware we're just over the hour we've allotted for it, but if you're happy,
Yep.
Just to do a few open questions. So my right-hand man, Ben, has got a list of guys who we've sort of selected out to read a few questions. So Ben, could you invite the next person or the first person to ask their question, please?
Yeah, of course, mate. So the first one on our list is Henry Thomas. Is Henry still there?
Henry.
Yep, I'm here.
Very good.
Henry, do you want to go ahead with your question, mate?
Okay. What was your most favourite test in the 2005 Ashes series?
My favourite test, probably it's a tricky one. I would probably say Edgbaston, because obviously I got some runs in that in the first innings. I got 90 in the first innings, which hopefully got us on a good start to winning the game. But they were also nerve-wracking because everyone was quite close. There was something happening always at the time. It was really exciting and nervy cricket for a good sort of 5-6 weeks. But great fun. What's your favourite?
Probably the Lord's test.
The Lord's test? We lost the Lord's test.
Wait, no, I forgot. I forgot which. What am I saying? Okay.
Oh, bless.
Was it the Oval?
The Oval was the last one where we won. That was a good one. Well,
yeah,
we drew the test match, but we won the series.
Yeah, I liked it.
Good. Did you watch Kevin Peterson's 158? 157 did he get? 158?
Yeah, I think it was 157.
Good.
Okay, Henry, thanks for that. Brilliant, mate. So you just put your microphone back on mute, H, that'll be great. Good lad. Ben, do you want to crack on with the next one?
Yeah, can do. Thanks, Henry. Great question, mate. And on the note of Kevin Peterson, then we've got a question from Will Erland.
Okay.
Will, are you there? Yeah, go on.
Do you think he's a hero, a villain, or do you think complicated?
This has changed since the original question.
Well,
I'd make the wording a bit more concise.
Okay. I'm going to be like a politician now, not I'd around the question, but
that's why I gave the complicated option.
Yeah, as the batsman, he's a genius. I think you see the odd player now and again. You got the likes of someone like a Shane Warne would be a genius in my eyes. Brian Lara would be a genius. Kevin Peterson. I just watched it today, just watching back some of the shots he played, which was just incredible. How good a player he was. I watched another game the other day against South Africa when he got a massive 100. And it's just like, wow, not many England players have ever played in that sort of fashion. He's off the field. I don't read too much into it. If you ever get a chance to have a glass of wine with him, he's a great man and great conversations about stuff. You just got to put up all the razzmatazz and rubbish that goes with it, really. But he's a good man. He's a good man and a fantastic player.
Thanks, Will, for that.
Cheers.
No worries. Thanks, Will. Ben, have we got time for a couple more, mate?
Yeah. So next one I've got on my list. I've got a few more, if that's all right. Not too many. I've got Johnny Gale from the England Learning Disability Cricket team.
Johnny's joined us.
Thank you, Ben. Hi, Flowers. Good to see you. Marcus, thank you for the webinar. I was really interested in hearing all of what you've said so far. I've got a couple of questions regarding your mental approach with your batting. In this case, what were your methods you tried to use when you were trying to make sure you kept your shape early in your innings?
I think this probably goes back to, to my style of leaving the ball. I wanted to, as much as you can do, you want to be aggressive, of course, when you open the batting, if the pitch is conducive to that and the ball's not swinging too much. But I go back to the simple start of what it was. If I was hitting the ball late, right as close to me as possible, then you could do, most things at that stage. The problem was if I got a bit too expansive and started playing the ball a bit too early and not getting my body into the ball, then that's when I was really in trouble. So watch it early, and play it late was obviously really important for me.
And how did you, in addition to that question, keeping that mentality side of things aside, how did you try and maintain the positive mindset if you found yourself in a situation where you were playing everything too early, or even if you were going quite well and then you had that sticky patch of play? How did you go about those kind of situations?
So a sort of drill that I would always do if I was hitting the ball not like I wanted to, and more often than not that was always too early. I would have practice beforehand, knowing that was happening, where I would have every ball thrown at me and I would try and smash it into the floor as quick as possible to almost make it sort of bounce. So if I was going to drive, I'd hit it and it would, and ricochet into the floor as quick as possible. That was really important. You could also then recall that, obviously, sometimes when you're out in the middle of starting to get ahead of yourself and hitting it too early, you get back to that point of trying to hit it into the deck as quick as possible. Really, really made a massive difference. I think naturally you go through phases when you're batting and different points of concentration, because I don't think you can concentrate the whole time. It's more of you've got to know how to accept it when you may lose that little bit of concentration, and what are you going to do about it? Because more often than not you start worrying about, oh no, I'm losing concentration here, I'm not as focused. Well, you've just got to get it back to it. Take a few deep breaths, take a bit of time, maybe call for a drink, and just get time to be able to refocus and get back to the simple things that you're doing.
That's awesome. Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah, that's great. Guys, I'm just aware of the time here. If we got, would anyone else like to unmute themselves and ask a question before we wrap things up, please? Is anyone?
Go. Say me, please. Me, please.
Perfect.
Fire away.
What was your favourite ground to play at and why?
Oh, good question.
My favourite ground, I think, is Lord's. Is a wonderful ground because of the history and the ground itself. But if I wanted to bat anywhere in the world, and where I would back myself to get runs, I'd go and play at the Oval. The pitch was always really good, and the viewing, the background always felt like it was very, very good. You could very white and you could see everything. I always felt like the Oval was a pitch that you were batting on where they were bowling from like 25 yards rather than 22. It always felt like the ball was a bit slower at the Oval, where you play other grounds where you don't get runs and it feels like they're bowling from 17 yards. So the difference is a huge difference, but it's a brilliant place to bat, the Oval.
Brilliant, great question. Thanks for that. That's brilliant, guys. Any more? Have we got one more? Thank you. One or two more. Anyone would like to ask their question?
I think we've got one from Ali Wall, haven't we, Tom? Is Ali still here?
I've got another one if I've got time, Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, Peter. Far away.
Marcus, you're a left-handed batsman.
Yeah.
A lot of people are born left-handed who've seen it as a disadvantage. Were you a natural left-handed, or did you nurture it? And was it an advantage?
I've always batted left-handed. Just from an early age, picked the bat up and stood that way, I'm told by mum and dad. I'm right-hand dominant, so my right hand, arm is strongest. If I play if I play any two-handed sport, so cricket, golf, baseball, I'll do it left-handed. But anything one-handed, like tennis, bowling, throwing, is all right-handed because I'm right-hand dominant.
Wow! And if you're playing football, what foot would you kick with normally? What would be the dominant foot?
With both, obviously, but I'm right foot dominant.
Thank you.
Wow, that's really interesting. Oh, there's another brilliant talent. Your brain is working both sides of your head as well. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. I don't know why. Just that's how I grew up.
Okay.
Just quick question, if I can.
Yeah, of course.
I'm Marcus Scott from CL Sports. Really appreciated watching you playing for England. I think you were the first big hitting left-hander, really, I can remember playing for England, and inspired me as a player. I always found when I played club cricket that I played better with a good relationship with my teammates. Was there anyone special that you felt you always performed really well when you played with them?
I think as an opening batter, you always got to build that good relationship with your opening partner. Don't get me wrong, I've always found it quite easy getting on with people. We had a great relationship with Andrew Strauss, a good relationship with Michael Vaughan, and other players that you get used to. But you do build that bond together, don't you, and build a good opening partnership because you have to walk out to bat together. But I think that comes in teams rather than sort of one or two people, because you're gonna have to bat. If you play well and you get double hundreds, you're gonna bat with probably 7 or 8 different people. So you've got to build that relationship with most people and understand what goes on when you're batting with that type of person. But stats would show, I think there's, people do have relationships and score better with certain people. That's for sure. It just naturally unfolds. During my time with Somerset, the amount of times me and James Hildreth would have batted together and had success would have been a lot because we worked really well together when we batted. So everyone has their own unique way almost.
Perfect.
Appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Scott, thanks for that. Marcus, thanks for answering that. Guys, I'm just aware of the time, and Marcus obviously got his evening and his children to get to, and etc. So, look, I just wanted to say from my side a huge thank you to Marcus for today, and also thanks to you guys for your input and making it an interactive session. Marcus, fantastic. Thank you so much for giving it your time for today to speak to our cricket family that we have. Guys, thanks for all your input. Hopefully you found it useful. Hopefully it was great to get an insight into a legend of the game, and that word shouldn't be used lightly, but he is a pure legend of the game. Stay safe, everybody. Remember, next week we have got Harry Gurney, who global T20 franchise cricketer at the same time. That proves to be that should prove to be an interesting discussion. I know he has some very different but insightful views on cricket, and that'll be worth listening to. So if you can make it, again, that's 4:30. And tomorrow morning we're doing our weekly cricket and coffee webinar at 10 o'clock. You can catch up on that on Facebook Live if you wish. Marcus, thank you very much for your time. Guys, if you can all leave the meeting when you get a chance, please. Also, a big thank you. That's great. Thanks for that, Tony. That would be fantastic. I'm sure everyone else will echo that round of applause. So, yeah, brilliant.
Legend. He's a legend.
Thank you, guys. Have a great evening. Marcus, I'm just going to hang on here just to say, okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Tom.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, Marcus. Cheers.
Cheers.
No, I don't know how to turn it off. Oh, leave meeting. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you just go to leave meeting or end meeting, it should be fine. Super. Thanks, guys, for your support. I don't know where we're at. There's 8 of us left. So. Be with you in just a sec, Marcus. Right, that's everyone. Marcus, thanks for that, mate. That was fantastic.
No worries. No worries. All good.
Spot on.
Works quite well.
Well, yeah, it worked nicely, mate. Hopefully it wasn't too taxing for yourself. I tried to get a structure to it that I thought would work. Quite a nice audience as well. There's a few guys in there that were happy to ask questions, and yeah, decent selection of questions actually, which is nice.
Yeah. Good range of people doing it as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
coaches or...
kids we work with and clubs and just So, but look, mate, thanks a lot. I really do appreciate it, don't we, Ben?
Yeah,
Pleasure
definitely,
to
mate.
help you out,
I really enjoyed that. That was really excellent. Thank you.
And look, mate, you enjoy the rest of your evening, but we could keep in touch. And how's your level 4 stuff going?
There's not a lot going on really, is there, at the moment? It's building the court, the coaching, so that we can build the portfolio. But are they going to put it back? I don't know whether they'll distract it or put it back a few months or maybe till next year. I don't know.
I thought about this in the week, and I'm thinking that I think they're opening a massive can of worms if they put us back, because it's year 1 of a cohort. The second cohort have already gone through a year of theirs.
Yeah.
I just think the backlog would be something I think it'd be impossible to recover it.
Well, unless they put it back to say March next year or February or something like that. So, are we going to get much more coaching in that time? I have no idea. Who knows what it's going to look like? There might be a bit of coaching for myself, with the professional stuff, but I don't know. I really don't know if there is or not.
And the other thing with that is that if it's, I don't know how you see it, but if it is more short format, it doesn't always give you time to implement and, get stuff done that perhaps in the 4-day stuff, you've got the time to work through it, haven't you? And spend time with players, and I don't know. But it's just an interesting one. I'm not sure where that's going to go. It's just...
Well, Woody said in his last sort of mail, wasn't it, that he said that they'll look at it. They haven't planned on changing it at the moment, but we'll wait and see.
Who knows, mate?
Yeah. There's a lot of water under the bridge between now and when we should be doing it. So,
absolutely, mate. But look, mate, just thanks a lot, and it really is appreciated by us, and I know everyone. And I'll I'll forward any feedback we get. It's always nice to hear. But no, spot on, mate. Look, you take care, and
catch you soon.
Keep in touch. We'll catch up soon, yeah.
Yeah. Cheers, man. See you later.
Cheers. Thank you, mate.
Cheers. No problem.
Bye bye. Bye bye. That was top draw, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did Big John like it?
He was sitting in the garden.
Big John was booted out the room all day, and so I had to do some work in the garden.
I sent him the link.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
and he didn't join.
Big John had to work, I'm afraid, Tom, because he's been booted out of his room all day.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
Not true.
Right, so I'm pushing on, mate, because I'm starving.
What's the agenda for tomorrow?
Hang on, I will.